Chloe, can I get you to start by just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you, your level of injury, and maybe, I don't know, a little bit about your life now?
So my name's Chloe Kennedy. I have a C6 incomplete spinal cord injury. So I now have a 14-month-old daughter, and we live with my partner in an apartment in Sydney. My accident was 3.5 years ago. It was snow skiing in the north of Italy.
Yeah.
And I broke my neck.
Can you tell us the story of how you had your injury and maybe what your life was like before your injury as well?
Yep. So I was living in Italy at the time, and I had just finished doing a culinary course because I wanted to go and cook in Italy. Not to be a chef, just for fun. And I just finished up, and I thought I'll just do a little bit of traveling before I go back home because my visa was about to expire. And I met up with a friend of mine through my boyfriend that I'd met in Australia, and said, I'll come up to you and we'll go skiing. So went up to see him, we went skiing, and I think it was the second run, something went wrong, and I woke up 8 days later.
Wow. And do you have a recollection of the actual event, or
Nothing.
That was all? Yeah, okay.
Zero memory. I've got a little bit of what I think is a memory, maybe the 10 seconds before, thinking something's not right, but no memory.
Wow.
But I do know the problem was bad fog.
Right.
So I didn't know what the problem was, but we actually went back there at Christmas time, and I met...
To the scene of your accident?
Not the scene, but the area.
Okay.
And we met with the emergency crew that saved me.
Wow.
And, just had a casual dinner with them. And
was that quite an emotional sort of experience for you?
They explained everything to me because I was apparently conscious the whole time, and I assumed I was unconscious.
Yeah.
But no, I was conscious the whole time, and I knew something was wrong. Yeah, they told me that day in particular there was a lot of fog, and when I came down one of the hills, I think it was kind of a fork, black run one way and the easy run the other way, and I managed to go down the black run.
Ooh, okay.
By accident.
Yeah.
So at least I know now that it was a complete accident.
Just a freak thing.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how your mind blocks out what you were obviously conscious for, but as a coping mechanism? Like I've got small snippets of memory from when I had my car accident.
Yeah.
But pretty much the only thing I really remember is I had my first flight on a helicopter, being airlifted away from the scene of the accident. Yeah. But don't really remember how.
Oh, yeah, I was in a helicopter. Don't remember.
Yeah. Interesting.
Nothing.
Okay, so yours was relatively recent. You said 3.5 years ago.
Yep.
Chloe, can you talk to us about the kind of grief and loss associated with that injury? I mean, you're obviously pretty young still, and in quite an exciting phase of your life, traveling overseas and experiencing the world. And then to have this freak accident and have your life sort of turned upside down. Talk a little bit about what that sort of grieving process was like, or what your experience of that loss was.
It was definitely hard, very up and down. I think sometimes you think everything will be fine. There's a lot of denial at the beginning. I think everyone has a lot of denial, and they start talking to you very early on about, okay, you're going to need to go home with carers and you need this equipment. And I just said, I'm fine. I won't need any of that.
Yeah.
And then you sort of get a bit of acceptance and you think, it'll be fine. I had a really good support network. So I was in hospital for 10 months in total. And my mum would come every day. My boyfriend would come every night. And then I had really good friends that helped normalize things for me. So they would take me out to dinner and get in taxis with me, or get buses with me so I could practice doing normal things in a different way. And so I think that helped the transition.
Okay.
And then we had to look for an apartment because I was living overseas when I had my accident. So then coming back to Australia, I didn't have a home, and there was no option to go and live with mum for a while because she lives up 20 stairs.
Yeah.
So my boyfriend and I decided to move out we hadn't even lived together before.
Oh, wow.
So we decided to move out together and just had to find a rental that was accessible enough, which we did eventually.
Okay.
And we're still there.
So you were in that sort of long-term committed relationship, but you were traveling overseas and your partner was still here in Australia at the time?
So he's Italian, I'm Australian. Okay. We met in Australia.
But you were in Italy when you had your injury,
yeah.
And he was in Australia as an Italian. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Wow. Interesting story. Chloe, do you feel like even now, 3.5 years on, you still have some days where you kind of think about the loss or the grief or things are a struggle, or?
Oh, yeah.
You do? Yeah.
Yeah. I think I got to a good part in my life where I had accepted it enough and thought, okay, this is hard, but I can find other ways of getting things done. Okay, I can still go to the gym. It's a different gym. I can still go to work. Just don't work as much. I just worked part-time. I can still go and have coffee with my friends. I can still see my family. I can still have dinner with my boyfriend. And then, having a baby was amazing. But that also brought up new things, more struggles, I guess.
It sounds like you've got a really positive attitude in terms of focusing on what you can still do, as opposed to a lot of people spend a lot of time dwelling on what they've lost or what they can't do. But
I still go through moments of that. It's just trying to find the positives, which, like I said, sometimes is hard, but there's always, I can always find more positives than negatives.
Yeah,
and I think everyone struggles with their own, there's always something that people want to complain about, and they don't have a physical disability.
Yeah, it's all about perspective, isn't it? In terms of, okay.
It's like, okay, I can't do this, but I can do it in another way maybe, or I still have great friends and family, and I have a baby. And
talk to me about that. So you decided so soon after your injury to start a family and go down that track, which is obviously
it was
not
a surprise.
Simple, okay. Not a simple process, and there's some challenges involved. You're still coming to terms with all the challenges of living a life with a spinal cord injury.
Yeah.
And now you've got a baby on top of that. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, she wasn't exactly planned.
Okay.
We definitely wanted a family, but if it was planned, maybe not so soon. Right. But then in hindsight, maybe it's a good thing it wasn't planned. So
giving you something else to focus on too. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Amazing.
So I never had any sort of struggles thinking, oh, why aren't we getting pregnant, or having to sort of focus on that. Okay. It's kind of, in hindsight, I think it's kind of nice that it all just happened very naturally.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Tell me the story about your daughter's name.
Oh, yes. So when I was traveling, I decided to go to Scandinavia and try and see the Northern Lights, which is Aurora Borealis. And I never got to go because I had my accident 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave. And then we found out as soon as we could the sex of the baby. And my partner was just obsessed with trying to think of a name. So we found out she was a girl. I think it was the Saturday morning. By Sunday morning, he said, I think I know the name. He's like, what about Aurora? And I said, oh, wow, that's really fitting because of me wanting to go and desperately see these lights. And I never got to. So I think it's a nice story.
It is a good story. That's a beautiful connection. Hopefully one day you'll get to take Aurora to see the Northern Lights. Awesome. Chloe, are there any positive changes or sort of personal growth that you can think of? I know it's relatively soon after your injury still, but you've been through a lot. Like there's a lot of adversity that you've overcome in a short space of time. Do you think you've grown as a person as a result of that? And can you point to any sort of personality traits or anything that you've discovered about yourself that has changed as a result of everything you've been through recently?
Probably even like you said, it's perspective.
Yeah.
It's so easy to dwell on silly things before having such a serious accident, and you just realize how stupid that those menial things are. So I think the perspective is, oh, okay, well, I had such a traumatic accident, but I'm alive and I can still have a baby and I can still just do normal sort of adapted things.
Yeah.
So it's just perspective. But in saying that, there's still bad days, but everyone has bad days. It's not just someone that has a physical disability.
Sure. And did you feel like, or do you ever feel like your sort of sense of meaning and purpose in life has changed drastically, or you struggle with a sense of meaning and purpose in life since your injury? Because I know a lot of people feel a lot like their life's just completely turned upside down, and what was important to them before is not actually that important now. And there's a sort of a sense of, well, what is the point, or what am I doing, or what am I here for, kind of thing. Do you ever have that sort of sense of questioning your meaning and purpose in life, or is that all changed now that you've got a beautiful daughter?
I think having a daughter changes that, definitely. I guess it can change that, but you just need to find your purpose.
Yeah.
Like whether it's a particular job or a hobby, activity, sport. Also playing sport has really helped me.
Okay.
And yeah, if having a baby is something that would give you purpose, then definitely.
And you're a wheelchair rugby player, I believe?
Yeah.
Okay. And you've discovered that recently, or is that?
No, I started playing in hospital.
Oh, wow.
And then when I got out in hospital in November, and then that next year I played consistently. So I went to Queensland to play and Victoria, and I think being around, not that being in a wheelchair means that you have to associate with people in wheelchairs, but it's no different to just being part of a book club or something where you all have common interests. It's that same feeling. So being around other like-minded people.
Yeah, and a deep sense of connection, because
you can ask them questions that you can't ask your able-bodied friends. And so as much as I like seeing my friends from before my accident, it's also nice to be part of this new group.
A sense of community and a connection with people that just get it.
Yeah, and I think even if you don't really like sport, you can still find a sport to be a part of that's just for fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't go playing with this, I'm going to be the best player. I just go, at the moment, it's a very social thing for me.
Yep.
And I get to have fun. And it's good exercise. It's very hard. You'd think looking after a baby, yes, I don't stop, but it's not overly physical.
Okay.
I just have to follow her around the house. But going to rugby means I get some proper exercise.
That's so interesting hearing you describe sports for the social element, or that aspect, because I've kind of gone through that journey myself, where I've treated it all as a competitive outlet, and kind of the only measure of success for me was winning and achieving, elite sort of status in sport. And now I've gotten past that in my life, yet I'm still involved in sport for all those reasons you just described. But it's taken me so long to get there and realize that actually the important bit is the friendships and the camaraderie, and the fact that you can have a random conversation about some topic that you would never talk to somebody else about, but because this is someone that understands what your life is like with a similar injury, you can have that conversation. That's, sometimes you learn something new just from, talking to someone else that's going through something similar. I know it's relatively soon still since you've had your injury, but is there anything that you can point to that you feel particularly proud of in terms of your way of coping with all this adversity? Any personality traits or any sort of anything that you think, wow, I didn't even realize that I had that, ability to be that, whatever it is, resilient, or like, is there something you can think of that's, you're actually proud of in terms of how you've responded to all of this? If not, that's okay. I guess, I mean, you're at a very different stage from me thinking about an injury 22 years ago now and kind of reflecting on that myself. So I suppose I've got a little bit more time and distance and space to look back on that and think about how I coped with things. And it's, a different phase for you. And I'm in awe of the fact that you've started a family and you're kind of coping with all this on top, because I've now got 2 boys of my own, and the challenge of being a dad and having a family is a pretty big challenge as well, on top of adjusting to a spinal cord injury.
I think just trying to get back to doing as normal things as possible was important for me.
Okay.
So I started going back to work before I even left hospital, playing sport before I left hospital, just trying to do that sort of thing. Or just a matter of me being able to get to the shopping centre on my own was important. And being able to say, oh, okay, let's catch up, to a girlfriend, and being able to get to her house, and or just push to the cafe next door, or those little things I think was so important to me.
It sounds like that's kind of achieving that level of independence.
Yeah.
That is something to be proud of, given, the things you have to overcome in order to be able to be that independent.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk to me about relationships and the impact of your injury on relationships. Have you found that any of your sort of friendships, people that you knew before your injury, has anything changed? Or, a lot of people describe maybe common interests being different now because your interests have changed.
I feel pretty lucky with the friends I had were very supportive. So I think the kind of acquaintances who would maybe pop into hospital and, oh, I'm so sorry, what happened? And then you never see them again. Or you get the message, oh, I've got to come visit you. And then they never do. But you just realize, okay, they really just were that acquaintance and they weren't a real friend. But the friend, especially because I was living overseas for a year before my accident, those friends that I was still in contact with are still my really good friends and still really try to make things as easy for me. So they're always happy to kind of, if we're going out for dinner, what's easy for you to get to? Or they'll do little things like I'll show up at dinner and there's already like a chair removed for me. So little things, it's really cute. And then some friends that I had before that maybe weren't really close sort of came out of the woods and almost took this kind of like motherly role and really wanted to help me, and they still keep in touch. I probably wouldn't go more than 2 weeks without seeing them. They now help me with my daughter. I can easily call on them. I think a lot of my friends are in health, so they might be nurses that have different days off, and I can say, oh, I've got to go to rugby tomorrow, can you come babysit? Or I've got this on, can you come babysit? And they're happy to come and help. And
it sounds like you've got a pretty awesome support network around you.
I feel pretty lucky in that sense, because I do hear a lot of people they just lose all of their friends, and that would be really hard. Or maybe their family lives in another state, or they're not close with their family. So I'm lucky that my family are kind of within an hour away, and they come and visit every second week.
And you're pretty close with your mum and your sisters, I take it? Yeah, okay. Awesome. And what about new friendships or relationships? Like you talked about this new sort of disabled community that you've just become a part of.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you formed a lot of new friendships or met a lot of new people that way?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Especially through sport.
Okay.
That would be the biggest one. There's still a friend that I was in hospital with. We still catch up all the time, and he'll pop in for dinner or just chat on the phone. And again, it's those, you can sort of have different conversations with those friends that able-bodied people might not understand.
It's interesting that you keep coming back to sport. Were you, I mean, you obviously had your injury skiing, but were you a pretty sporty person before you had your accident? Like, were you involved in much sport?
Active, but not necessarily sports.
Okay.
So I never really played team sports until now, and I really enjoy it.
I'm intrigued by that because, I often, I guess I reflect on my journey and realize now how much I got out of team sport and that sort of camaraderie and the peer support you get from being around other people with spinal cord injuries.
Yeah.
But then I wondered what it's like for someone who's not sporty, that just has no interest in.
Well, that's why I say you should just maybe give it a go anyway, because I did not like team sports before, and I love going to rugby.
Yeah, okay. And it's more for everything
and you do
surrounding
learn things that, the OT won't teach you or the physio won't teach you, and you see them do something. It's like, oh, how do you do that? Oh, well, it's easy. Just do this. And next minute you're, transferring differently, or they teach you something you didn't know you could do. And oh, that's great.
It is pretty amazing how much of that I even still get now, 22 years post-injury. I still have, someone teach me something new, and I think, wow, like, why isn't that part of rehab? Surely they should teach you that in rehab. Yeah. But you just can't learn all of that stuff from somebody or a textbook or somebody in rehab until you see someone else do it.
Yeah. And I think in hospital there's too many rules.
Funny. Chloe, I first met you at Sargood, and that's obviously a place where people go for a lot of physical activity and recreational stuff. Talk to me about your experience of Sargood and what that's been for you.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that this place was made. I think it was done just after I had my accident, so it was perfect timing.
Okay.
And again, that's been another place I've met people.
Okay.
Especially before becoming a mum, there were other wheelchair mums that I met, and I would ask them all these questions because it was definitely in the forefront of my mind. I knew I could have a family, but could I cope with looking after a child? And the advice that I got was so helpful. Awesome. And I'm still in contact with some of those people, and especially with groups on Facebook. There's a few different support groups. A new one that's come up lately is one just for girls, and that's been really helpful too.
Awesome.
Because again, it's not just people in your situation, but just that same gender helps with certain things.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But all the recreation as well at Sargood. I think I surfed for the first time since having a spinal cord injury, and that was at Sargood.
Awesome.
And just the way they take you to the national park and go on those 4x4 wheelchairs, whatever you call them.
I found just getting out of my comfort zone was something quite refreshing and sort of made me feel a little bit more alive, like I could tackle some other challenges because, well, I managed to get on a surfboard and go surfing. Like, who would have thought?
Exactly. Yeah. I've been fishing, I've been kayaking, I've done so many things. And you don't think that you can do it, but they make it really easy. So it's not this big ordeal.
Yeah, okay.
Going surfing. They make it so easy.
Yeah, that's good. Glad to hear it. Talk to me about what activities you found meaningful for you now. Obviously, there's a lot of meaning and purpose in your life around your daughter and looking after your daughter now, and that's kind of given you a lot of focus and direction more recently. But what passions or activities can you point to that you've discovered are really important to you post-injury? You've talked about wheelchair rugby. Is there anything else? Are you still into cooking or any sort of other?
Yeah, just recently.
Yeah?
Yeah, I've discovered a few products that help me cook. And probably the last few months, I've managed to make a few meals, and my boyfriend's a very good cook. So now that he knows that I can do a bit more, he'll say, "Oh, cut me up the carrot and celery and onion, and I'm going to make this." And I'm like, okay. And it's not really a chore for me because I always loved cooking. So now that I can do it, I'm happy to cut up all the veggies.
Okay. And other sort of activities or things, passions, things you're interested in that get you out of bed in the morning?
My child.
Yeah. Okay.
She wakes me up.
Fair enough.
I still like going to the gym. Well, it's a bit hard in this time, but I was definitely going to the gym more pre-COVID. I really enjoy that. I did used to swim pre-pregnancy. Haven't been swimming since.
Okay.
But again, just the normal little things, just getting out, having friends over, going out for dinner.
And do you feel like your appreciation of those things has changed at all? You know, given, you know, what you described before was a different perspective now that you've been through this huge adversity and you're kind of able to put things in perspective more. Do you feel like you're more appreciative of those smaller things in life, like going to have a coffee with somebody? And
I didn't realize how important those little things were.
Yeah.
And that was one of my, like I said, my biggest goals, just being able to get to the cafe on my own, or just being able to go to the shops and pick up some milk and some bread, and just being able to do those sort of things on my own. You think, oh, I can do this. Who would think that was such an achievement, just doing mundane little tasks like that.
But in reality, overcoming the adversity that you've had to, being able to do those things is something to be proud of. You've regained your independence and you're able to, you know, do those things again when some people, I guess, don't think they can or aren't even up to the challenge of trying to regain that level of independence. So,
and still going to work or doing something like that. I like that, I look after my baby. My mum is my job at the moment, but just having my brain sort of away from spinal cord injury is also nice sometimes.
Something else to focus on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just going to a normal job where the focus isn't on your disability or ability, but you know, there's a deadline for this, you need to get it done. And it's no different to the person sitting next to me doing the same job. So it just feels very equal.
Okay. How's your job or career? I mean, I realise now that you're looking after a young baby and that's kind of a full-time gig in itself, but pre-injury, what kind of work did you do before you went travelling?
I'm a scientist.
Okay.
So I worked before going overseas, I worked in organ transplantation, and then getting back to Australia, because I was in Prince Wales Hospital, a friend of mine worked in genetics at Prince of Wales, and she said, come and do some work experience here. So I did, and then got a job there. So I was working in genetics for about a year before having Aurora. And then I was supposed to be back already, but then COVID happened, and it's not really good for me to be working in the hospital. And
do you think you'll get back to that though? Is that something that's important to you?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I'd love to get back. I've just got to wait and see what happens with this situation.
Sure. I guess I want to sort of explore this idea of getting back to work, because a lot of people that have spinal cord injuries don't go back to work. I think the statistics are something like less than 30% of people end up going back to sort of full-time employment. And you've, you know, not wasted any time getting back to work, and that's obviously something that was important to you.
Yeah. I don't think you need to go back. I mean, I haven't worked full-time since my accident. I just worked 2 days a week. So just everything in kind of moderation is what worked for me. So the gym was very important for keeping up with function and strength. So I would allocate maybe 2 days for the gym, and then I worked 2 days and other things on the other days. And I think it was just having moderation is what worked. So maybe people think they have to go back and work full-time, or because they have a disability, they can only get job in disability kind of work. But maybe just need to look for what you have an interest in. Or again, maybe it's lucky that I already sort of had an established career before my accident. So it was easier to kind of just get back into that because I had experience, I had the degree. So it's like the job is based on my brain, not my physical ability.
Sure. and it's obviously important to you in terms of how you define yourself as a scientist. You just described yourself as, so that sort of vocational element is clearly important to you as a human being. This is who I am. This is what I do.
And they knew that there was certain things, because I started off by doing work experience. So then they could see what I could do and what I couldn't do. And then I guess it was easier for them to make a decision when a job came about and I applied for it. They already had an idea of what I could do to benefit them. So I wasn't going in like, oh, I have a disability and I can't do these things. They already knew, and it was fine, because I could do all the work that I do for them is on the computer, and that's what they needed.
Okay.
So the disability was
irrelevant. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Chloe, I want to ask if you had any sort of tips or advice for people that are going through what you've been through in terms of sustaining a spinal cord injury. If there's any sort of other nuggets or any other bits of information you would want to share with somebody who's going through that experience more recently. Anything you can think of that you think might help people get through that sort of adversity?
Just try and get back to some normal things that you did before. And I know it might be hard because you look different, or you think people are looking at you. They're really not. They don't care. I've even think I've heard of people that get embarrassed about getting asked for help. I accept all help now. If people come up, oh, do you need help with that? Yep, thank you. That would be great. I love it. And then it makes people feel great that they helped someone. So you're helping them.
That's really interesting that you say that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do struggle to ask for help.
Yeah.
And I've found recently in my life as well, sometimes it's not so much about me, but somebody wants to, help me do something, and that makes them feel good, and that's their good deed for the day, and they, walk away feeling a lot better about themselves as a result of that. And yeah, that's almost a contribution that I can make.
But definitely just keeping your friends, still trying to keep in touch, like don't push people away, try and get into something that you still like. Just again, because you have a disability doesn't mean you can't play a sport, or you can't get a job, or you can't just go and hang out with your friends like you did before. There's always going to be somewhere that's wheelchair accessible. It might take a little bit more planning. I just went on to Italy for 5 weeks over Christmas.
Wow.
So if I can handle that with a 6-month-old baby and just my boyfriend, a lot is possible. And we're still together.
That's awesome. So that was Aurora meeting her extended family in Italy for the first time.
Yeah, and lucky we went pre-corona.
Yeah, be a bit challenging to do that now.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Thank you very much, Chloe. I appreciate you coming in